Coming up this time on the show, we're going to be speaking with Christos Zolas, a NetBSD security officer. He's got a new project called Blacklist D with some interesting possibilities for stopping brute force attacks. We've also got answers to your emails and all this week's news on BSD Now, the place to be, SD. BSD Now, episode 87 on the list, recorded April 29th, 2015. Hey, I'm your host, Chris Moore.
And I'm Alan Jude.
And we're glad to have you guys with us this week. We're a little rested up, I hope, after coming back from Bellingham over the weekend. So your flight home okay, Alan? Everything uneventful?
Yeah.
Okay.
Slow, but uneventful.
Yep. Yeah, I made it home safe and sound here too. So definitely getting caught up on all the work and stuff. But there was a lot of stuff that happened just in the few days of the weekend here. Just reading through the notes, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So, of course, we want to hop right into it. And we're going to start today with some OpenBSD news. And it looks like some news of new PAE support showing up. So, go ahead, Al.
Sorry.
For those who don't know, physical address extension is what we're talking about, and they've added support for that to the i386 architecture, but it's probably not what you think of when you hear the term.
Right.
So, in most operators...
Yeah, in the past, PAE was how you got more than 4 gigabytes of RAM on a 32-bit system. Mm-hmm. So it was a feature like Windows Server had for a while. Yeah. For people who couldn't upgrade to 64-bit at the time. So this is a little different, though. This change... actually allows the system to use the no execute bit of the processor in user land, which is going to help harden some more in-place memory protections on OpenBSD on 32-bit. So other operating systems enable the feature without necessarily doing anything to the page table entries, but they do get the available memory expansion, but they don't get necessarily the potential security benefit that comes along with it. Yep.
So as we discussed in a previous episode, the AMD 64 platform already saw the W or X kernel and user RAM improvements, and the i386 kernel reworking will begin shortly. So it looks like this is all coming back to 32-bit systems.
Nice.
One thing we do have to mention, not all CPUs support this, so I'm not sure what the breakdown of that is, Alan, if this is a new feature or when it got added.
The no execute bit... Yeah, it didn't show up until kind of near the end of the x86 days, but there are reasons that people run the 32-bit version of stuff even on their even though the processor might support 64-bit, or even things like the I don't know if the Atom processors support it. Those are some of the only 32-bit only processors that are still kicking around. And obviously some of the new stuff Intel's been doing in the embedded space that is 32-bit only. Will likely have this. So I can definitely see its usefulness, especially in embedded firewalls and things like that. I think anything modestly modern will have the NX-bit support. That was
probably have that on.
That's been around since, I don't remember if it was before or after Pentium 4s. It might have been everything after Pentium 4 has it. Something along those lines.
Well, that makes sense. Well, it looks like if yours supports this will improve upon the previous WX or X, which was already out there. So this is pretty cool. And the AMD 64 improvements look like we'll be landing in OpenBSD 5.7, which is due out in just a few days of when we're reading this. So if you're just watching this later over the weekend or whatever, it might already be out at this point. But the i386 improvements will likely be in 5.8, so roughly 6 months from now.
It's be interesting to see... or interesting to have those advantages even on older hardware.
Definitely. So that's neat to see that they're adding support like that. Okay, next up, virtualization news.
Yes, the most asked question about Beehive ever is, does it run Windows or can it run Windows yet? Well, turns out
when's it coming?
It works now.
It does. And I think we had a screenshot to prove it. I don't know if you got that up on the screen now.
So yes, in Tokyo, which was like a month and a half ago?
Yeah, a month and a half ago.
So 6 weeks ago, we saw the slide that's actually being shown in the Windows machine here from the Beehive presentation saying Windows, it's not running as of yet. We're still ramping up and they're unfamiliar with it, unlike every other operating system they've done, they don't have access to the source code to add a bunch of printfs during the boot up to see what's happening, and a lot of things like that. And the UEFI stuff was a requirement to get Windows going. But with the contribution of the UEFI stuff from, I forget the name of the company now. It's right here at the bottom of the tweet, I think. Pluribus Networks. Yeah. They have the EFI stuff, and they got Windows 2012 R2 running using the Windows Serial Console thing. I forget what they call that. I think it's also down here.
Well, that plus RDP.
Yeah, so they RDP'd into it to take the screenshot. But the
yeah, it's not that there's a VGA yet, but this is definitely one way of doing it.
The Serial EMS console that's built into the server versions of Windows. So yes, Beehive still doesn't actually have graphics, but you can boot up Windows via Windows Server via Serial Console, and then RDP into it to get your graphics.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And the other question people had was, when will this be available? Well, the commits for it are already starting to land. As of yesterday, last night.
Some of them hitting current.
Yeah, some of them dropped in current, including emulate the bit test instruction that Windows 7 uses the bit test to check the delivery status of the APIC ICR registers. So it looks like they're not targeting only Windows Server. Windows 7 is being tested and worked on as well.
Okay.
They've also, another one people have been asking for, they emulate the MSR PAT instruction. Previously, they've been relying on the processor and its save restore capabilities provided by the VTX extensions. To basically let the processor do all the work, and they wouldn't have to emulate anything. But by emulating this particular one, it lets Beehive run nested inside older versions of VMware.
Oh, nice.
So you can actually run Beehive under VMware with the EPT pass-through stuff now.
Oh, that's pretty slick. So how about the UEFI portion of that? I hear that still needs a bit more.
Yeah, it's not in a state that's easily used by regular people yet.
Not for mere mortals.
Yes, yet, though, but there's a lot of work going on that, and hopefully with all that done, we'll basically have a unified boot system, and you won't have the two separate Beehive commands. You won't have to run the loader, stage it up, and then run Beehive on it. You'll be able to just fire off one command and boot up your VM of any operating system.
So you won't need like the grub Beehive command and all that from ports. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Hopefully.
That would be very cool. Yeah, that'd be nice. You could just boot directly into the operating system guest bootloader.
Yep.
Well, very slick. So it looks like the UEFI work. We have a note here that they're aiming for this around the time of BSD can.
So they're hoping
a month and a half-ish.
Yeah. So a month and a half ago, we were told that it was nowhere near being ready, and now we're told a month and a half from now we'll be able to start playing with it. So
that is cool. Yeah, looking forward to seeing that. I'm sure we might get to see some people demoing it at BSD can. Maybe we can get a video of somebody doing that and show that on the following show. That would be cool. But so we will, of course, bring you more details on it as it lands and as more stuff lands in current. And also, we have a note here. If you're more interested in Beehive or Zen on FreeBSD, what makes you more excited? What do you want to use? So email us your thoughts.
There's interesting things on both sides there. Beehive is completely native. It's BSD licensed. It's very well integrated with the operating system, but it's not quite there all the way yet. And a lot of the tools and accessories and so on are missing. Whereas with Zen, it's been out there in the ecosystem for a long time. It's finally landing on FreeBSD, and you can already do Windows. It's not quite there for all the stuff yet, but it's definitely coming along. And there are lots of tools and frameworks out there, although some of them seem to, there's stuff like libvirt that I'm pretty sure no one is actually happy with it. It's just what there is.
It's just that's what you have.
Exactly. So yes, I think having both options is very nice for BSD, and you have the option of using what you're already familiar with, or Beehive obviously has the advantage of being licensed in such a way you can easily turn it into an appliance.
Yeah, and it's just built right into the base system, into the kernel, and then easily to set up and load and all that. So
I'm sure there are lots of people that are interested in either, just because you can bundle it with ZFS.
That's true. This is true. Sweet. Okay. Well, next up, we have some news from a project we haven't really mentioned a whole lot about, but Midnight BSD.
Done one interview, and that was about it.
Yeah, that's about it. But it looks like they've come up with a new release. Midnight BSD being a smaller project that we've covered briefly on the show before. But for those who don't know, it's an operating system that was forked from FreeBSD back in the 6.1 days. Wow,
That's a
it's
long
been
time ago.
that long. And their focus seems to be on the ease of use portion. So they already have their own smaller version of the FreeBSD ports tree, which they call M-ports. And if you're already using it, this new version is mainly a security and bug fix release. So this gets them caught up with all the recent FreeBSD security patches and gets a lot of their ports closer to the latest versions in the FreeBSD upstream ports tree. But you can check out their site on midnightbsd.org for more information about the project. And we need to get the lead developer to come on for an interview. So
I thought we already did that.
Yeah, I think we need to get this updated, though. It's
Yes,
probably been a
it
while
has.
now, for sure. But yeah, we would love to hear back from them, see if we can bring you some more information about this project and kind of where they're going at this point since they've done another release.
Cool.
Okay. Oh, TJ saying that we had done Ghost BSD before, not Midnight BSD.
Well,
so
I was trying to remember because
was.
I know why Midnight BSD is called Midnight BSD, and I'm sure that I only know that because of an interview, but maybe not.
Maybe not. Okay, well, maybe we saw something on a list or something somewhere. Okay, well, next up, this is an interesting one. Some OpenBSD news. OpenBSD has rewritten the file utility, which you're probably like, what? But yeah, we're all familiar with the traditional file command. It's been around since pretty much the 70s, so it's an oldie but goodie. And for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's used to determine what type of file something is. So you would run file space file name and it tells you what it is.
Yeah, so it uses libmagic, which has all these fingerprints. So if you look at the first couple of bytes of a file, most file formats like JPEG, PNG, and so on will have some kind of sentinel there that tells you that's what kind of file it is. And so when you run file on it, it can look at the first couple of bytes of it and be like, oh, that's a JPEG, that's a PNG,
you are this
is something else. Now, notably, they say that the complex test that they don't have currently is the stuff for ELF, which is the binary format for BSD. Now, that's actually my most common use case of the file utility is running.
Find out what type of binary.
Yeah, well, to run a file on like /bin/sh to tell which version of FreeBSD it was compiled with. So I can tell, in my jail, is that...
What were you compiled on? What version? And I use it to look and make sure it's a 64-bit and all that.
But the Beehive scripts, actually, the default ones that come built into FreeBSD, actually use it on your virtual machine image to tell if it's like an MBR formatted boot sector, or if it's GPT, and is this actually an image file, or is the file just empty still? And that's how it decides whether it wants to run the installer, or if it wants to boot off the CD image you provided, or if it wants to boot off the disk image. Because if the disk image is empty, then you can't boot off of it.
There's nothing there to boot from. So obviously, since this tool's been around for so long, it hasn't seen a lot of development these days.
Although,
recently.
Recently, it's had one or two security vulnerabilities. So the idea of doing privilege separation in it seems like a really good one.
Yeah, so that's part of the reason why they decided to do this, it sounds like. So some of those issues still remain unfixed even today in various BSDs, despite being publicly known for a while. But it's not uncommon. Here's part of the problem. It's not uncommon for people to run file on random things that you've probably downloaded from the internet, which is kind of the point. Because maybe you're wondering what this is, so you run file on it to find out what it is.
Well, even the case I just mentioned, if your virtualization script is doing it, you might not even realize you were doing it. Well, you have to run Beehive as root. Well, I download this VM and run it through VM run, and all of a sudden, it's
file command gets run.
Yeah, the file command gets run, has some buffer overflow or something, and code execution as root, and now your box is on.
That's bad.
Yeah. Bad. If the changes that OpenBSD did are not very portable, I wonder maybe about using Capsicum or using it in addition to the privilege separation.
That was the first thing I thought. Like, this sounds like a really good use of Capsicum, personally. But
I might have to learn Capsicum and write a patch.
Right? But OpenBSD developer Nicholas Marriott, which also happens to be the author of TMUX, decided it was time to do a complete rewrite from ground up. So this time, of course, using more modern coding practices and the usual OpenBSD scrutiny on it.
Yes.
So the new version, by default, will run as an unprivileged user. So no shell.
Underscore file is the new user?
Underscore file, I believe. And in a systrace sandbox. So it's going to limit, of course, what system calls can be made.
Yeah, it's not like Capsicum, but it's a similar type of security thing.
Sure. So with those two things together, it should hopefully reduce the number of potential problems there could be down the road
Definitely.
with malicious files. But interestingly enough, we got a link here in the show notes where Ian Darwin, the original author of utility, saw the commit and replied to it, which I don't know if you want to show that on the screen there, Alan, but it's pretty
Pull that
good.
up
It's
quick.
short. And while he's bringing that up, it'll be interesting, of course, in the future to see if other BSDs pick this up or if it ends up in OS X or Linux or anywhere else. It looks like someone's already throwing together an unofficial portable version.
Nice.
So I would imagine we will see it land in the ports tree or
Exactly.
elsewhere first
And
and
then
maybe get ported right into the base here soon.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. They say it's got a nearly complete magic parser, so I'm not sure which file types it will lose the ability to detect. And if, as long as that's a small enough list and not important ones, then I can definitely see it replacing file in the base system.
Definitely. We use file in a number of places as well for detecting like mount for when we do USB mounting and other stuff.
Yep.
But we'll have to take a look at that, see how well that works and make sure it doesn't break anything. And maybe we'll switch to it just like we've switched to some of the other portable OpenBSD stuff.
Yeah.
So
one other for that in FreeBSD, there's some new stuff from the auto mounter. There's a command fstyp, which the name comes from Solaris, and that's why it's missing the E. But you point that at like /dev/ada0 or da1 or whatever, and it tells you what type the file system is, and there's an optional thing to tell you the label for it, so that you can use that in things like it was meant for use by the auto mounter.
Sure.
But I can see that being useful for kind of the stuff you were just describing as well.
Yeah. We may already be using that. I'll have to check. My brother wrote them out, Trey. So
yes.
I think he does a bunch of different things. If one doesn't work, he'll try another one and see if we can get enough details to figure out what in the world somebody's thrown at us.
Yep. Because I just wrote a set of on the way to Japan, I wrote a set of patches so it can now detect ZFS and Geli encrypted things.
Oh, nice.
So that the latter there would be especially useful for you guys when you have Geli encrypted USB sticks. As soon as somebody plugs the USB stick in, you run that command on it, and so it is Geli. So then I have to, make a GUI password prompt for it or whatever.
Yeah, the way we do that right now is when we do our like persona crypt with the Geli encrypted keys, we'll put labels on it, so I can look and go, oh, okay, this is a persona crypt device or whatever, and do that. But yeah, your patch sounds definitely intriguing. That would help. The user does one on their own.
Exactly. It just looks at the prompt. It just looks at the last sector of the disk and parses it into the Geli struct. And as long as it contains the magic set of characters that mean this is a Geli device, it's good to go. I think.
Nice. Okay.
Because Geli doesn't have a label itself, the -l command doesn't actually do anything. And I'm wondering if it might make sense to make it return the version of Geli that was used. Not that it actually matters.
That could be helpful. Yeah, it's not been updated in a while.
Well, and there's just one command you run, and it reads the label, figures out which version it is, and then runs it through the right parser. That's all built into the Geli API. So,
okay. Well, as a nice segue here, going into our interview in a moment, the lead developer and maintainer of this file is going to happen to be our guest today. So
cool.
This is perfect. We'll be able to talk a little bit more about that. But before we do go to our interview, of course, we want to mention the first sponsor this week, which is going to be DigitalOcean. And the URL for that, digitalocean.com. Come on, look how easy that is. Where you can go and sign up with the coupon code FreeBSDNow, which will give you a $10 credit so you can start playing around with droplets and spinning up some VMs, including ones running FreeBSD. Or if you're adventurous and take a look at our show from last week, where we had some instructions on how to put OpenBSD in one of the droplets as well. And of course, all on SSDs. And I think the basic one had like a terabyte of transfer a month. So lots of bandwidth and space to play around.
Yeah, they all have RAID 10 SSDs, high-end Xeon processors, and you get a gigabit internet connection with a 1 terabyte of traffic per month, with the option to purchase more. And you can, they have all the different sizes, and they have different locations. The newest one is in Frankfurt, Germany, which I know we have quite a few German viewers who will be interested in that. But they also have Amsterdam, New York, San Francisco, Singapore, and London, I think.
Nice. Yeah, so definitely a variety of locations if you want something close for speed,
Yep.
or you need something far away because maybe you're copying something you wanted on the other side of the world to test stuff.
Yep.
That can be a really cool way to do it.
So at their new Frankfurt location in Germany, they've used the newest hardware for their build out. So they have 40 gigabits of networking going into each hypervisor to make sure that
Oh, wow.
all the VMs can use their whole gigabit, and they're using even faster SSDs than they've used before.
Oh, that's even slicker. Well, there's a reason why you may want to pick that particular location to host your droplet. So again, that's going to be digitalocean.com, and go there, get signed up, use free BSD Now. If you had started that when we started talking about it, you would probably be about done right now.
Yep.
So definitely go get it set up and start spinning up some VMs. Okay, we're joined now by Christos Soulis, who's here to talk to us about a Blacklist D and, of course, some NetBSD stuff. So welcome to the show, Christos.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank
Yes,
you.
thank
Well,
you
we
for coming on.
appreciate you coming on. So first question we ask everyone, give us your backstory. How did you first get involved with BSD in general? What brought you here?
In general, basically, when I was at school at Cornell, we had a whole bunch of machines that were running all kinds of Unix. But our main machine was a VAX 11 780 that was running 4.2 and then 4.3 BSD. So that was my first real contact with Unix. Then, it was pretty much, there was no real, internet back then in terms of, we had BitNet and ARPANET, and the open source stuff that we would get would be all from NetNews, and you would download stuff and compile it and build it. And since at school we had a whole bunch of different machines from running HPUX, Domain OS, IRX, all kinds of Unix, it was a challenge to get them working on all those platforms because this is like pre-AutoConf days.
Sure.
So it was a good learning experience. And, when Linux came around, before it was 1.0 and Build Solids came with 386 BSD, I thought, oh, that's really cool. Basically I can run, Unix on my PC. Let me try to do that. And so, I started, and I got attracted more to NetBSD because I realized how important portability was across different platforms and being able to run your code across different architectures, just because we had so many and it was so difficult to get everything working everywhere.
Right.
So I said, oh, that's cool. We can have a unified API and code that runs everywhere without, if-defing a lot. So
Cool.
that's how.
Yeah. So how did you end up becoming a NetBSD developer?
Well, I was interested in joining, so I started bombarding them with patches, and eventually they gave me
Here's a commitment. Do it yourself.
Here's a commitment. Yeah, enough of this.
Yeah, a lot of people I think have had that same experience.
Yeah.
And then,
So yeah, the first thing I did, I guess, on BSD in general was before I joined even NetBSD. The CSLG was asked me because I was maintaining TC show at the time to delete all of the AT&T code and replace it in the C shell. So I got commit access there, and I fixed C shell, and then they asked me, oh, we need a command line editor, so I wrote libemedit for that, and then I started fixing various other things, and then I started bringing that stuff to NetBSD together with, I think the first big thing I did for them was the SVR4 emulation, because back then, it was nice to be able to run commercial binaries.
Sure.
And then how did you parlay that into becoming the security officer?
Oh, I wasn't. I mean, it's like everybody does tries to do, wherever they think there is a way to help. And I was very interested in security because I think it's, if you have an insecure system, nobody will use it. And I don't know if you ever had the experience of having your systems hacked. I mean, I had once, more than 15 years ago, and it's a very, bad experience because you don't know exactly what to do, and it doesn't matter what operating system was, and I won't say which which one it was at the time, but you feel violated, and you just want to basically take out your work from the infected machines and rebuild them and find out how you can prevent this from happening ever again. So, and this is why I'm interested in security. It's a very challenging field too, because once you think, with the mindset of security when you write code, I think that your code quality also improves, because you have to predict, the unpredictable, or think like, oh, how can someone circumvent what I'm writing?
Definitely. So, what we're here to talk about a little bit today is a blacklist D. So explain to the listeners and to us what exactly it is and how it got started.
Well, I have some slides that are available. The BSD, NYC BSD users group. But the thing that happened was that I have quite a few machines that are internet facing, and they have the standard services running, and like SSH, named, FTP, etc. So, I noticed that as time went by, my logs got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and I was like looking at it and said, okay, what's going on? Okay, people are trying to break into SSH all the time, and people are trying to rewrite my zone files, and I was like, this kind of sucks, because I really don't want to go out of my way to what I consider to be like a terrorist attack. Like I don't want to change my habits, like run SSHD to a different port or start. So I just was saying I would really want this to be automated, and if my machine detects it's being attacked by someone, I wanted to stop answering requests from that someone. And I look around on the network, and for other people that have done the same thing, and I saw there's quite a few packages like fail to ban. Is the most popular one, and I looked at how they were doing it, and basically what they were doing is they were parsing logs, trying to figure out the address of the attacker or whatever else, and then contact the packet filter of the machine and block those connections. And I thought that was a kind of a clumsy way of doing this, because parsing logs is not a precise science. You have to different daemons log in different places under different formats. You don't know details about the connection. For example, sometimes you get a host name, sometimes you get an IP address, sometimes most always you don't know which interface that thing came through. So and also log entries can be faked, right? I mean, you can type logger or you have to basically flash your logs very quickly, so otherwise you can have a delay in responding to the attack. Or even if you don't want to log locally, you're kind of forced to, because now you have to log locally for fail to ban and other programs to detect the attack. So I said, if we had a different way of that the daemons could communicate to something else in a very structured form that they were being attacked, perhaps that would be easier. And I said I said in the beginning, oh yeah, but I mean, then you have to modify every daemon, and who's going to do that? And I said, but I want to try it anyway. So this is the birth of like Blacklist D. And I said, okay, so I wrote the daemon, and then I said, okay, let's see what changes we need to do to SSH, named, FTP. These are a few ones that I've done already, and it was just a few lines of code, because typically you look at where the call to syslog is to log that that either the connection was timed out or it was denied, and you just add a call to blacklist D and saying, okay, this guy is attacking me. And also I figured out that there's a very easy way to tell that the guy who is calling me is the real owner of the socket, because I can pass the file descriptor of the connection to the blacklist call, and then by checking the socket and doing get sock name to see if he's actually listening on the port, I can find the local side of the connection. Doing get peer name on the socket, I can find who has connected to me. And so I can just pass an integer, and I have all the information I need to decide what to do.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting.
So, is there any other particular reasons that you went with a library like this, centralized, instead of trying to do something?
Well, the choice, yeah, I mean, I don't know how else to do it,
Right.
basically. Doing it by processing logs is already there.
Yeah.
And it's not very precise, and you can't do a lot of the things that I want to do. Without modifying the daemon, another thing we could do is you could LD preload something, but that's like clumsy and it's not there.
Sure.
And if it's just a logging call and it's to a Unix socket, it doesn't matter if blacklist D is running or not. I mean, it's the same thing as syslog. If syslog is not running, and if you try to log, you just don't get your messages through.
Sure.
And so it's transparent to the program. It's just another function call that you do. So it's relatively cheap. And if you look at previous art, I mean, there is also DCP wrappers, for example, that requires a modification to your code to actually obey the rules that DCP wrappers were imposing.
That makes sense. So I guess how simple is it to integrate then with all the network services out there? Are you thinking most things will probably need to be patched, I assume?
I assume, yeah. I mean, you can have another feature of the conf test to see if you have the header necessary to compile the extra call, and if you do, then you do it.
Sure.
I just wrote this back in January. It's not. It's fairly new, and people can try it out and see how they like it, give suggestions back, or tell me it's useless. But I'm using it on all of my machines, and it's pretty. It has pretty been uneventful. I haven't touched it at all. I mean, it keeps running, and my logs are much smaller now. So,
well, have you pushed any of these changes upstream, or have some of the projects taken your patches?
No, because I think that the first thing to happen would be for other OSs or other people to adopt it. Because if you get NetBSD right now, I think also that's going to be pulled up in NetBSD 7. You get it anyway, right? So it's integrated. So there is no point in pushing it upstream. But if another operating system decides to adopt this approach and they need patches, then at that point it makes sense to say, okay, this guy uses this, that guy uses this. Perhaps you guys should put it upstream so that we can all use it.
Well, yeah, my first thought would be, if it was an upstream OpenSSH, then everyone would have the option of having it, like you said, with checking for the header or whatever. If you have blacklist D, then your OpenSSH supports it automatically.
A port option where it's like, okay, we want to enable this.
Well, with the port option, so we basically in FreeBSD, you could just make it an optional compile time thing for SSH from ports. But if it went into upstream OpenSSH, then everyone would have it, and as soon as they had blacklist D, they would get the
just shows up.
But I don't know how receptive upstream OpenSSH would be to adding the extra set of system calls.
I don't know. I mean, sure, it's only system call, just a function call that they have to put somewhere. But But in reality, first things first. Let's have more people start using it and see if people find it useful and if they like it.
Yes, get it a little more stable before we try pushing it upstream, so that we don't have to go breaking the API.
Stable. Yeah, it is.
Well, I just meant the API.
Right. If it needs changing, we can change it.
Right, and it's better to have that done before we try to get it pushed upstream.
Exactly. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So get some more people using it, and maybe they'll come up with some idea we didn't think of to make it.
Maybe if we get it in a couple projects like SSH to start or whatever, that would be a great testing location. I know we'd have users who want to play with it.
So the next question is, how portable is blacklist D? How much work would it be?
Well, right now, if you take the source from NetBSD, I compiled it and run it on Linux and Mac OS X. I haven't really done any integration at the backend. So the backend is basically a shell script that blacklist D calls to add and remove rules to the firewall, and that's basically firewall specific. And I did it that way, so I didn't want to encode any specific firewall APIs into it. Okay. So it should be fairly easy to integrate, I believe, with other firewalls.
Like IPFW.
Right, exactly. The one that I have right now is NPF, which is the new firewall.
Sure.
But I could do it for IPF easily, or I could do it for other things.
Oh, makes sense. Okay, well, cool. Well, we've talked about on previous episodes about people doing some cool things with BGP, like distributing spam lists or mails or PF tables for their firewall cluster. So do you think something like that could work with BlacklistD as well?
Sure. I mean, there's already, I forget what it's called. It's called SSH something. I can look it up in my notes.
SSH guard, maybe?
SSH guard, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that does it already. Basically, it has a distributed database and people can contribute to it. And,
sure.
Yeah, that's I think that's generally a good idea. But the way I see it, it's the approach that it's a different component, right? I mean, if I wanted to do that, perhaps I wouldn't put it in BlacklistD per se.
Right,
I would have something
be in that shell script, right? When you add it to your firewall, you can also add it to your distributed database of choice.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, in that script, I would add another hook to say, okay, publish that.
Yeah. Well, that sounds cool.
So do you have any future plans or extra things you'd like to add to it?
I've been having a lot of attacks that come from the same Class C subnet. So right now, what happens is that I have a rule that says if you come from a class, if you come from a particular IP address with a mask, instead of applying, just a host rule, I can pull the mask back to wherever I want to. So I can block the whole Class C just because a single attack happened from one address in the Class C. But I could see having rules and writing code that says, well, if more than one address has come from that Class C, automatically do that without me having to edit particular. So it's basically making the filter more intelligent. But again, it's like, where do you do this? I mean, I don't think that putting a lot of logic and intelligence into C code and a low-level daemon makes a lot of sense when you're trying to imitate or emulate AI and making intelligent kind of rules.
Right, when that could be done externally via the scripting side that's already there, right?
Yeah, basically somebody else can do some analysis and say, okay, you have already 10 rules in that Class C. Let me
combine them into one,
let me do something else.
One or whatever, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So one of the problems we've had in the past on the show is getting NetBSD folks to show up and do interviews and give us some content. We want to give them a fair shake, just like the other BSDs. So do you have any suggestions on how we get a hold of more NetBSD folks and get them involved so we can get the word out about some of the cool stuff you guys are doing there?
I thank you guys for doing that. I mean, I really appreciate the fact that you guys are trying to give everyone a fair chance and equal coverage, which is great. And I think that we only have to blame the NetBSD folks, including myself, who have been not very forthcoming into giving out interviews. But what I can do to help, and as I said in email, is basically try to get more people to present and in both conferences. It's not just this, but I mean it's everywhere. We can show some of the work that we have been doing.
Okay. Well, do you have to tell them how easy it was to come on here, non-threatening?
Yes, I will.
Me and Alan are really nice and all that.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I will definitely do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, the previous story we had just before we started here was about OpenBSD re-implementing the file utility, but the original version is something you maintain still, correct?
I think Ian Darwin, who is the original author of File, is an OpenBSD developer, and or at least he was. I think he still is. So I don't know. I haven't spoken to him, and I haven't seen anything about it being re-implemented. What I did see, which is interesting, was that somebody recently added a set of systrace rules to File, so that the process that actually is evaluating the rules is only allowed to do a certain set of syscalls.
Yeah, so they did that and some privilege separation so that the stuff that does happen runs as an unprivileged user. But as part of that, they re-implemented the magic parser, and it doesn't have support for ELF and a few other things yet. But
I mean that's fine. I mean, I understand that. I mean, the magic parser has gone to be very complicated, and actually, you can take the latest version of file and run it on a JPEG image, and I don't know if you know how the JPEG internal format is, but it's not that easy to parse. I mean, in terms of like there are no real fixed offsets. So you got to do a lot of work, and over the past years, we have been adding, or I have been adding mostly, complexity to the file parser, and of course, it has had a share of security problems. The question becomes is how much do you want to understand of a particular file definition versus how secure you want to be. Right. So, for example, right now, I don't know if you realize, but file entries are recursive or can be recursive, so you can actually call the file entry over and over and over again by just specifying another entry by name to be applied to a particular set of rules. So that in itself adds the looping and function call capability into magic entries, which wasn't there before. So yeah, I mean, you can make it simpler, but then it would be less functional. So for example, they took ELF off, but did they take also CDF off, which is the OLE2 parser? I don't know. Maybe they can take everything off and bring it back to where the System 5 file was, 25 years ago, but will people like it?
Yeah. Will it be useful enough to be a drop-in replacement for everything?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it doesn't recognize half of the stuff that this file recognizes, would you use it?
Right.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah, it's almost like I wonder if it makes sense to kind of have more the user kind of choose the level of verbosity they want, how deep and how long they want to spend trying to figure out what the file is.
Well, we do that. I mean, right now there are limits. Right. So on all of the things we have recursion limits, we have a number of L section limits. But it's like, and there was a gentleman that ran file through a very large fuzzing exercise, and that's how we found the majority of those problems, and we fixed them. But that it's again, nobody can guarantee that there are no more problems.
Right.
There.
Sure.
The problem really is that file has been split into the program and the library, right? So there is libmagic, and I don't know if you're aware, but fixing file is not fixing libmagic, because you don't, like, you did privilege separation with file, but did you do privilege separation with libmagic? For example, PHP uses it, Apache uses it, there's a whole bunch, Mavis uses it. So there's a whole bunch of other software that uses it, and how do you address that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
so you fix basically one front end to it, but not the back end.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't know if they fixed the back end. I haven't seen. I mean,
yeah.
But my guess is that they did it for file, not for everything else.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think their file doesn't actually use libmagic. They wrote their own magic parser. I'm not sure though.
I don't know. I mean, I think that Ian, up to like a few years ago, was syncing with file.
I think so. But his reply to the Ian's reply to the commit was something about a lead albatross.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah. A very large bird crashing, I think.
I know, I understand. But
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what he was referring to, but.
Right, yeah.
Right.
I will ask him, and I will get back.
There you go.
Well, was there anything else you wanted to mention before we let you go?
No, I mean, if you have any more questions, that's fine.
Oh, great. Well, hey, you going to come out to any of the BSD conferences in the future?
I'll try, but I mean, I used to come to a lot of conferences many years ago, but now, I have too many things and too many responsibilities, and it's hard to get away having, family and kids and stuff. So
sure.
But who knows?
Maybe we'll see you at a future one. That would be great.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe we will. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on the show with us today, Christos. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Yes, you too.
Thank you. Okay, so before we hit it in the news roundup, of course, we want to mention another sponsor this week, which is going to be IX Systems. And the URL for that is going to be ixsystems.com/BSD Now, where you can go fill it out, get in touch with these guys, and let them know that we sent you, and let them build your next unique server, a storage solution, whatever it is you need. These guys will make it happen.
Yes, they have, they custom build everything that you order. So
Yes.
that makes a big difference. You get exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, you get something designed specifically to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. It's
Exactly.
uniquely designed for that. So I know a lot of you guys out there who listen to this show. There's a lot of sysadmins out there, developers, and odds are pretty good that you guys probably have a lot of hardware you manage. So next time you're walking through your server room or you have a chance, take a look in there. If you don't see a lot of IX Systems logos looking back at you, then you might have a server room powered by fail sauce.
There you go.
Nobody should have a server room powered by fail sauce.
Exactly.
That's not good. So definitely need to get to the guys at IX Systems and try it out. See what the other experience is like, where you get white glove service the whole way through, and sales engineers who might know more about the stuff than you do. I mean,
exactly.
I know when I call up, these guys know more about storage than I do, and that's a good thing because they're going to tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Exactly. It was like when I was building my biggest ZFS server yet, it was like, oh, well, I don't know anything about multipath. And so they helped me get started with that. And then it was like, well, I have like 4 options for how to lay out my ZFS pool. I could do, 6 RAID Z2s, or I could do, bigger stripes or smaller stripes. And, I could leave some for spares, or it's like, well, I'm using Z2, so I can withstand up to 2 failures in each of the 6 sets. So that's long enough to let me get a hard drive shipped in. So maybe I don't need any hot spares that way, and I can use more of the drives to get more of the storage, and lots and lots of options like that. And I basically get to email back and forth with Josh Petzel and be like, well, what would you do?
Right. And of course, they have all the experience to back it, right? They've been doing this for customers all over the world, so they can say, well, we've tried it this way, and this is definitely the best way to do it, and you'll have the best resilience.
If you're doing a database, you want to do it this way. If you're doing, just a Windows file server, you want to do it this way. And if you're doing a giant video store server, then you want it this way. But if you want to edit off of the video store server with like uncompressed video, then you need to do it this way.
Right. Because they want to squeeze every bit of performance out of those boxes that they can for you.
If you go to the IX Systems site and just click Our Clients, you can kind of get the idea that it doesn't matter if you're, Walt Disney World, Firefox, or Cox Communications, or, the U.S. Army, or Palo Alto Networks, or lots of universities, and, whatever you end up
whatever field you're in, they can build something that will fit.
Yes, whatever field you're in, there's probably 2 or 3 logos from your field on this page.
That's right. So your logo should be up there too. So you definitely want to get in touch with these guys. Right? There it is.
Yep.
So the URL again for that's going to be ixsystems.com/BSD Now. So next time you're in the market for some new gear and you need to get some cool new servers for, again, storage or anything, go ahead and give those guys a call and try it out, see what the experience is like.
Yes, and actually they have a new blog post up now where they continue to teach you things for free. They have their TrueNAS, which is their managed platform, the high-end redundant storage, and it's like, so if you use a TrueNAS, you get this high availability stuff where you can have multiple controllers, multiple physical machines controlling all of your disks. So it's like, well, how does that work? And so they have an explanation here where they talk about the difference between active passive, active standby, and the other ways that you can control your disk machine. So you see they have their 2 different controllers set up, and then they go through the matrix and connect to all the hard drives.
Research ahead of time for you, so you don't have to figure out how I use the off hardware. Just go to that and go, oh, here you go. This is exactly how you would do it when you order that.
Yeah, and with the active passive, they're all set up, and then active standby has the advantage of, depending on the type of operations you do, the second machine doesn't take over until the first machine is signed off properly, and this allows you to sync the caches between the 2, which can make a big difference depending on your type of workload. And then there's active when you need to basically load balance across your storage controllers because you need to push more bandwidth than any one of them can manage to push at once.
Okay.
And they have a detailed explanation of how all those different works and what the pros and cons are. And if you have any more questions, they'd be glad to talk to you, so you can call them up.
Well, cool. Well, again, let us know if you guys have experiences with them, and we'd love to hear about it, how your customer experience went. Okay, so first up in the news roundup for this week, some news we've been waiting for. I've been eagerly awaiting, and the Google Summer of Code, which we've been doing this now for quite a number of years, and some of the various BSDs do that. But we got a list of the projects that were accepted this year for both FreeBSD and OpenBSD. So, of course, we're going to have to go through those lists for you and tell you what it looks like it's being worked on.
23 projects in total. The first one is updating Fickle, which is the fourth interpreter for the bootloader. So this will allow the fourth bootloader to have some new features.
Well, this is FreeBSD, by the way. Let's make sure we...
Yes, so this is FreeBSD, and this will be mentored by Devin Teskey, who's the guy that writes the bootloader stuff for FreeBSD. I've been working with him a bit lately because I'm hoping tonight, actually, to send out my patches for the boot environment stuff and get the final polish from him, and then it'll be ready to commit.
Oh, fantastic.
For OpenBSD, they have asynchronous USB transfers from... Sorry, it's cut off there. From Userland. So this will be mentored by Martin Pouchot. Maybe we can get him on for an interview to talk about it once they're most of the way through. We're also hoping actually to get most of the students on to talk about the experience of doing Summer of Code. And for some of them, this will be their first real experience interacting with the various BSD operating systems in their communities. And it'll be interesting to get to talk to them.
Oh, very cool.
Then they have just-in-time compilation for firewalls. So this will allow you to make firewall rules that are more complicated, but that will be compiled just in time to be used by the firewall. So this one is for FreeBSD and will be mentored by George Neville Neal. And then the next one is also OpenBSD. This is the ARM SD and MMC driver and controller. So that'll be letting you use SD cards and MMC cards on all the ARM devices, since almost all of them have one of those, and oftentimes that's how the operating system is loaded. And that will be OpenBSD and mentored by Yod. I forget. He's famous for doing a bunch of stuff with the LibreSSL.
Okay.
The other big one that's making headlines is also OpenBSD, and that is porting the Hammer 2 file system to OpenBSD.
Yeah, that's pretty slick, since I guess that ZFS won't work for licensing reasons for them, I believe.
And just the size of the code base would make it very hard for them to review. So
this makes sense.
Yeah, so Hammer 2 is fully BSD licensed, and the plan, I recall, is to port the file system, but not the replication and clustering stuff. But yeah, even just the file system and the snapshotting and the no need to do an FSCK and so on. That would be a very big advantage to OpenBSD.
Definitely.
And we scratch a bunch of the itches that were listed off at the Why OpenBSD Sucks talk at Asia BSDCon that Henning Brouwer gave. And that'll be mentored by Joel Singh and Moed Vele. And then next up, FreeBSD, the FreeBSD test cluster automation. I'll be glad to have that and have more of the testing happening so we can detect when there's a problem sooner. That'll be mentored by Warner Losch. Then this other one, I was actually talking to a bunch of people about this at Linux Fest Northwest, actually, is memory compression and deduplication. Yeah, I don't know which compression algorithm they're planning to use, but something like LZ4 and that ZFS uses, where you can detect when a chunk of memory is not compressible and avoid wasting CPU on it, but at the same time compress it quite a bit. And with LZ4 in ZFS, you can get 4-ish gigabytes per second per core of compression and even more of decompression.
Sure.
So it's not going to kill your memory performance either. And then deduplication, you can definitely see advantages to that as well. And especially since compared to disks, memory is more likely to be, page aligned and so on. And so you're going to probably be easier to deduplicate than the disk is. And with those two things happening, I can see, it'd be awesome, even just on a laptop with 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, to get a couple more gigs of RAM out of that. Even if you're, you're not getting huge amounts necessarily, but every little bit helps.
Wonder if running like VMs and stuff too, how much that would
Exactly.
help.
Running a bunch of VMs that are running the same operating system. Although there's security implications of memory deduplication. There was a VMware bug that came out 6-ish months ago, where by detecting how long it took when you modified it, I think it was, to tell when memory was deduplicated, you might be able to steal keys from another machine or something. I forget how that worked.
Interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, that will be mentored by David Chisnell. Then we have the KMS drivers for the Cirrus logic cards, which is what a lot of virtualization systems emulate. So that'll give us the accelerated graphics in a VM. So that'll be good. Then we have type-aware kernel virtual memory access for utilities. So the idea with this one is the netstat utility, for example, accesses kernel memory to print out your network statistics. But every time the kernel changes, your netstat utility needs to be recompiled to be in sync. This will basically provide a way so that they don't have to stay in sync as much anymore. It'll be able to tell what the type looks like and if it's different and make sure to load it properly. So that one should be cool. Then OpenBSD has more improving the USB userland tools so that, as a regular user, you can do more things with the USB. And then we have Linux packages for PKG. This is one we're all interested in. Currently, in order to install CentOS, what we do is extract all the RPMs to a directory or whatever, and then we're repackaging those to So you make ports for each one and then repackage them. The idea with this one would be you could just point it at the URL of a yum or apt-get repository, and it would be able to just extract those packages, translate their metadata, and just be able to install them directly. That will be amazing, and that's being mentored by Baptiste.
That'll make it easy to pull from all sorts of different Linux repos very easily.
Yep. Then there's an M-tree parsing and manipulation library. This will be for doing installs, building disk images and stuff without having to be root. Currently, that basically creates this big M-tree file, and by improving our parsing and manipulation of that, you'll be able to build virtual machine images and like appliance images and images for embedded systems like ARM and so on without having to be root to do it, and be able to script that a lot better. Which is really cool. Then another one we've been looking forward to, porting Beehive to ARM processors that support the hardware virtualization, and that will obviously be mentored by Peter Grehan. Then Edward Niparella will be mentoring a student to add CD-ROM emulation to the CTL layer. So that will provide basically CD-ROM over iSCSI, which could be quite useful. Then there's FreeBSD libc security extensions, which will be mentored by Pedro at freebsd.org. 6xs IPv6 tunnel broker netgraph node. So there's more fun with IPv6, and that will be mentored by Bjorn Zeeb, who's one of those IPv6 fanatics. He pinged me in IRC earlier, and instead of saying ping like most people do, he says ping 6.
Right.
This one's also interesting. Change GPT ZFS boot to dynamically discover boot environments during startup.
This one I like.
Yes. So this is basically taking what I did, which is get them from a config file and make it all automatic, and that will be amazing.
Yeah.
And that will be mentored by Jin Lee from IX Systems.
Yes, I can see why we would definitely want that, because we've all had to
Exactly.
use lists and whatnot. That's just another point of failure. It'd be nice if it could just pull it right off the disk.
Yep. Then FreeBSD support for the QB board, and then the FreeBSD Beehive version of the NetMap virtual pass-through for VMs. So this will allow you to connect your Beehive VMs directly to NetMap, which is the super high-speed networking interface in FreeBSD, and that will be mentored by the author of NetMap, Luigi Rizzo. Then we have adding Pixie support for the FreeBSD guests to Beehive, so that you can network boot your VMs, so that you can use orchestration systems to completely provision them from scratch. That will be mentored by Rui Palo. Then we have the NE2000 device model in user space for Beehive. So this is emulating an older networking card, so that when you run older OSs like Windows XP that don't have support for VirtIO or don't have built-in drivers for newer NICs, you'll be able to emulate an older style NIC, so that all your, if you need to emulate a Windows 98 machine for some reason, or even Windows XP or whatever you're trying to emulate, there'll be an older NIC you can use that, and that'll be mentored by Gavin Atkinson. Then we have a multi-queue testing project. So multi-queue is a feature on the networking cards to get more, to basically spread the load across your CPUs better. And that'll be mentored by Hiran at FreeBSD. And lastly, the an automated module porting for Perl, which is an OpenBSD project, and that will be mentored by Andrew Fresh and Vazim Zukov. So there's 23 Google Summer of Code projects, and we're hoping to get 23 interviews out of that. If not, actually, twice that many, because we would like every student and every mentor.
Okay, so next story in the roundup, we have FreeBSD on the Gumsticks Duo Vero, which, if you're not familiar with what this is, and I wasn't when I first read that, it's a dual-core ARM-based computer on a module, which basically looks more like a stick of RAM than a full-fledged mini computer. But what's cool is this article is going to show you how you can build a FreeBSD current image to run on them, and using the Crochet FreeBSD.
So Crochet is a build utility for building embedded images of FreeBSD. It's kind of like, I think it's the spiritual successor to NanoBSD, except for you customize it instead of being stuck in the NanoBSD framework. So they
he said it takes him about 20 minutes to build an image on his system, and then you end up with a full FreeBSD current running on that box, which is pretty slick.
And then he used SVN to download the FreeBSD source tree and start playing with it.
Nice. So, of course, we like hearing when you find interesting devices that run BSD on, and I know NetBSD runs on everything, right? So it's neat when we see other BSDs running on some of these more esoteric devices. So if you find one, or you know of somebody who's running something like that, send it over to us so we can try including it in a future show. I know over the weekend when we were at Linux Fest Northwest, we got to see one of the quadcopters there with some ARM stuff on it.
That one was actually x86 based, and that's why it could run FreeBSD. That one was a slightly beefier one because it does all kinds of stuff. Sure. But yes, it was interesting to see all the different things you could do with embedded devices now.
Yeah, definitely slick. So there's just so many of these little low-cost little computers on a stick showing up nowadays that it'd be interesting to see where this all ends up. Okay, well, next up, we have some OpenBSD news, and this is interesting about a European Union study, which was done recently, where they recommended OpenBSD. So a recent study by the European Parliament was published explaining that more funding should go to critical open source projects and tools. This, of course, is especially important in all countries after all the mass surveillance documents came out, and, of course, they're all reacting to that. So one of the quotes here is, the use of open source computer operating systems and applications reduces the risk of privacy intrusion by mass surveillance. Open source software is not error-free or less prone to errors than proprietary software, the experts write, but proprietary software does not allow constant inspection and scrutiny by a large community of experts.
Exactly. If it's open,
that kind of sums up.
Yeah. If it's open, more people can inspect it, and more importantly, people can fix it when there is a problem. The problem with proprietary stuff is, you can't see the code to find out why it's doing the thing it's not supposed to be doing. And
you have to trust the vendor that there's nothing malicious there now.
Right.
Because you can't view the code to prove one way or another
there isn't something malicious there. And then on top of that, when we've seen vendors go away or vendors stop supporting a product, and, having the code means that you can continue to use it and fix it. And it's interesting that it took them until now to figure out that open source is good, and that's where you should spend your money.
Better late than never, but we're glad you guys made it to the party.
But yes, they mentioned OpenBSD specifically in a bunch of places, including the risk, opportunity, and mitigation strategies stuff. And so it's good to see that, and hopefully they can contribute more to OpenBSD and make more things happen.
Nice. So it looks like we also got some Reddit, Undeadly, and Hacker News links here, particularly talking about this, talking about corporations giving back to the BSDs as they make use of them in their infrastructure, which is something we've discussed with a couple of businesses, such as Voxer,
M-Tier, Netflix, and lots of other places. Hopefully we can get some more of those coming up soon as well.
Oh, nice. So yes, stay tuned for a future episode. But yeah, those are always fascinating to hear how they're using it and how they're contributing back to the community. Okay, well, next up, some FreeBSD news here, working with Git. So no, they've not switched over. I would like them to, but they've not. just my personal opinion. But if you've been interested in contributing to FreeBSD, but maybe you're not a big fan of SVN and are too lazy to learn it or don't want to learn it or for whatever reason, they do have a GitHub mirror, which is how we actually pull all of our FreeBSD code. We pull it straight from GitHub.
Before now, it was kind of, if you create a pull request, they would just close it and say, please file a bug over Bugzilla. But now Alfred Perlstein has wrote some documentation on doing a Git SVN workflow that basically makes it easy for a developer, in the case of this message here, Craig Rodriguez, to go to GitHub, grab those 3 pull requests, pull them into his own Git checkout of FreeBSD, modify the commit message to be the format that FreeBSD requires with all the right tags, and then to actually do Git SVN to push it into the FreeBSD repository.
Yeah, that's really slick. So that's going to make it a lot easier, and I think easier for people to contribute to who are used to using.
Like Git, and there's also some work going on for a script that would automatically take a pull request someone creates on GitHub and push it into the FreeBSD Bugzilla, so that when you do something over there, it does get noticed by all the right people, because when the bug gets created, it goes to a mailing list and people actually see it. And there's a whole process for linking. During the commit, you indicate which bug it was related to, and that automatically goes and adds that information to the bug and creates the MFC reminder, so it gets merged and closes the bug when it's time. And
you get a full history of everything.
Cross-references,
so you know who looked at it, who did what, where it got committed, and all that, and it's very handy.
And the other advantage to doing it that way is, it keeps everything inside the FreeBSD project, because as we saw with Google Code, sites like GitHub could just go away one day. If all your history is over there instead of on servers you control, it can just go away. And one of the great things about FreeBSD is that currently our source code control has revision history all the way back to 1993.
Like forever. Nice. So hopefully this will encourage more people and more developers to get involved, especially those who are familiar with the whole Git system. So anyway, it's about time. Congratulations and thanks for getting that in, Alfred. And I guess Craig is working on that. Okay, so we do have some feedback and comments to go through this week, but before we do, we want to mention Tarsnap, of course, which is going to be tarsnap.com/BSD Now. And yes, it's a URL. You go type that into your web browser, you fill out a little bit of information,
and you're set up.
You get an account, you put a few bucks in it, and now you're doing
the minimum
backups.
Is just $5. Just stick in $5 and you'll be good forever. I put in $20, and now if you look at my account here, my balance as of yesterday is $19.36.524135961
Yeah.
So if I had only put in $5, I would still be good for the rest of the year.
Right? So definitely inexpensive, which means there's no excuse not to be
even with my
data.
500, my half a gig of data that I've got backed up. It's like all my business files. So they're just small text files and documents and so on. And my storage cost is 0.44 cents. That's not even a whole penny.
Yeah, there's not a reason not to, guys. And they got clients for everything up there. So go to the website, find your platform of choice, download the correct client for it, and that's pretty much all there is to it. It's got a tar-like interface.
It's super easy.
If you know how to use the tar command, you're 99%
and
of the way there already.
You can buy Tarsnap Mastery and figure it out.
There you go. So go ahead and get signed up, guys. No reason not to. Get your backups done, get them done off-site, and get them done safely.
Exactly.
Okay, so first up in the feedback and questions, we have Sean, who writes in, has a hardware suggestion. He says, hello all. I'd like to build a new lower-end system for either FreeBSD or OpenBSD and have it run as my home gateway. If it works out well, and it will, I'm sure, he says, I'll share my experiences with my boss at work. We have a couple of Apple airports, and they are a joke to manage. The software client that you have to install has about 5 icons without any advanced config possible. So this is the plan for my build. Be honest what you think. Understandably, you may not have heard the box, but it does have Intel NICs. And then he lists some links to Newegg and Amazon.
All that I really care about when I'm building a networking machine is, does it have Intel NICs?
Any comments on the particular system?
It looks a little big. I've seen smaller boxes. And that's an old.
He's got room for it.
That's an older Atom processor. But yeah, it supports up to 4 gigs of memory, and it's got one mini PCI Express 1X slot. It's got your SATA ports, and it's got the two 82 574Ls. So that's pretty much all you need.
What's not to love?
Now those are, I think those are EM NICs, not IGB. So they're not server grade NICs, but so they don't have multiple queues and so on. But that matters a lot less when you just have a tiny Atom processor, not a big E3 or something, or E5. So yeah, that would seem like it would work quite well.
Yeah, definitely. And he just has a
and
standard
the RAM
like
and disk
black
are
hard drive.
just a RAM and disks.
Yeah, come on. I think that would be just fine. He said also he doesn't think he'll use ZFS.
Right. Not
don't
for,
have to.
It doesn't really make sense for a router anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that processor is 32-bit, so you're not going to want to anyway.
Oh, yeah. Definitely
so,
UFS then.
Those should... I didn't see the price of that box, but I wouldn't pay too much for it.
It's $220.
Yeah. I wouldn't pay too much for that just because of how old that is for an Atom. You can get newer Atoms, but something like that on sale is definitely something I would buy.
Yeah, maybe instead of a 1.8 gigahertz dual core, something like a 2.4 or higher would be.
Well, just
nice,
even the more server class Atoms, but then you're buying ECC RAM and it gets more expensive too. So
sure.
That
I don't see why this wouldn't work.
And
only uses 60 watts.
Well, that's kind of high for an Atom, honestly.
Well, it says that's the max power supply. So
I think the Atoms are like 15 or something. Also, because it has that mini PCIe, you can buy a one of these. This on Newegg is $18 or so. It's the Intel Wireless Advanced N6205, and this is supported properly on FreeBSD, and you could have wireless out of your router that way too.
See? There you go.
That's the same
Apple airport trash.
It's the same wireless as in my laptop, so I know for a fact it works very well. So then I went and bought an extra one just in case.
Nice. Okay, well, hope that works for you, Sean. And when you get that built, take pictures, post it, blog it somewhere. We'd love to see how that turns out. What kind of throughput you're getting on that? Okay, next up is Brian.
Video conferencing on OpenBSD. He says, "Hi guys, love the show. Thank you for making my commute useful to me." He says, "I've recently moved most of my daily life to using OpenBSD on a ThinkPad X220. Since it supports mSATA drives, I'm able to run OpenBSD on the primary drive and use the mSATA for his... I haven't figured out how to do this in OpenBSD yet, which is where he's running Arch Linux and Windows 8.1 VM. Says, what I'm wondering is there any good video chatting software available that works on OpenBSD? He says he's done some serious Googling and come up dry. I think the WebRTC stuff, does that work on OpenBSD? No?
No. So funny enough, on their list of GSOC ideas, this one did not get accepted, but they had a WebRTC integration for Firefox for OpenBSD. They said it's not fully implemented, nor is it stable on OpenBSD. Sound integration is not finished yet. So those, I guess, are the things that they were hoping to do in that project. But I don't think that one got accepted.
I don't know.
Definitely, there's some work to be done. I guess that would probably be the first place you'd see some kind of web or video conferencing.
How much work did you have to do to get to work on FreeBSD?
I didn't have to do any of the porting. It was done by the Firefox and porting guys. So we just, the biggest thing we had to do is turn on some different flags. So we used Pulse Audio. What I found was that was the only one that worked properly where I could get the mic and the camera to work at the same time, which was kind of important. And there were some other things that fixed too. But anyway, it just made WebRTC work properly.
I don't know if the OpenBSD port tree has Jitsi and if it's of any use.
I don't know. That would be one to look for,
and I know
though, if Jitsi
people
is
in
available.
both BSDs have been looking at trying to get Google Hangouts to work, but the WebRTC stuff works very well on FreeBSD. Did you use it? Or
that's what we're trying to switch to use. Yeah, I use it here. We do a weekly meeting every Monday on appear.in with it. So we use Firefox with the Pulse Audio turned on, and we can get 4 or 5 of us in the conference, and then we can do screen sharing and the whole 9 yards. So it works well enough for that purpose. But Jitsi would be better, I think, long term, because they have that video bridge software you can install, so you can do bigger conferences, and you're only sending one copy of your video to the server, which will then multiplex it out to everyone else. So it's like kind of running your own Skype system. Okay. Anything else you wanted to add to that, Alan? Okay. So next up, we have Sean, who asked about out-of-date ports. He said, "Hello, all. I'm interested in PyPy or PYPY.
I think it's pronounced
however
PyPy, yeah.
you decide to pronounce that. But FreeBSD port hasn't been updated yet, so he's looking for a more current version. He says, do I submit something through Bugzilla? No, that's a good place to start. He said, if so, what can I provide in Bugzilla? Well, it depends. If you're going to send a patch, that would be best if you have a patch
So
which will update
there's a
it.
program on that runs on the FreeBSD cluster called Port Scout that goes out and finds newer versions of software and will tell the maintainer. So the maintainer most likely is already aware that there is a new version of PyPy. They just haven't got around to doing the work yet. Oftentimes, for a minor update like this, it's literally just changing some version numbers in the ports makefile and updating the dist info and the package list. And if you, the FreeBSD Porter's Handbook describes how to do this, and you can probably whip up a patch in like half an hour and submit that, and the maintainer will be like, "Oh, okay," and they approve it. Or if after 14 days they don't, then it times out and someone else can do it, and then that gets committed and it'll be available for you to use.
Yeah. So it should be fairly straightforward. But definitely go through the Bugzilla route and get something put up there. Yes, patches will make the whole process faster, though, because then you don't have to wait for him to do the work, and you can get around to playing with it yourself. You can do it locally. And he says, I'm sure there's many ports like this that only need minor updates and the maintainers may not be aware, which Alan already said. Obviously, we have a system which will nag people. I get that from time to time.
There are times where
a lot of times it's just a matter of finding the time.
There are times when it doesn't work perfectly, but for various reasons, we do prefer that people don't create a bug just telling us there's a new version, because otherwise the bug system gets full of duplicate information and so on. But
Sure. But check Bugzilla before you submit it, because a lot of times I look and there's already somebody's already reported there's a new version, and sometimes there's a patch attached, and I grab it here.
The best thing is, so the maintainer is the one that's responsible for updating it or approving patches submitted by other people. But there is a timeout so that if they don't do that, it can still go through. So definitely check out the Porter's Handbook and look at doing the update yourself, because it's actually not that hard.
Okay. So next up, we have Charlie asking about episode 86.
Sure.
You want to read, Alan?
He says, not that my opinion is worth even that much, but he says, Star Wars, really? He says it fell a little flat to his ears, at least.
Not a fan.
He says one of the strengths of the BSD Now is that it's grounded in the technical, and I feel like Linux podcasts and other YouTube videos get too light on technical and too high on personality and so on. Not that I wouldn't listen to the Chris Moore podcast, but I feel it felt out of place. I don't know. We have seen kind of feedback in both directions. It was nice to get to know us a little bit more and the talk. We did purposely put it at the end of the show so that if it wasn't your thing, you could just turn it off. But
where I'm coming from on stuff like this is I'm always trying to think of ways to make the show interesting for new listeners, especially those who aren't super technical but want to learn. And, it gives a little personality to me and Alan as well. But
I'm not just a robot.
We had a good conversation about this. Right. We actually do things like outside and have normal lives and whatnot. And we'll see where this goes going forward. But it would definitely be at the end of the show where we discuss other stuff.
Like to see, if you have an idea of what you'd like us to talk about. We've done the discussion segments on the technical stuff, and we're definitely looking for more topics for that. But also, if there's other things you'd like us to talk about that are not strictly related to the technical side, we'd like to hear from you. And
the marketing and evangelism and just kind of the lighter side of BSD, if you were Star Wars reference there. I got one in.
I got an awesome one. Actually, it came from somebody from Isilon that was at Linux Fest Northwest, and I think he said it was his wife that came up with it. But so he had the final Beastie sticker on his laptop, and I said for another one, his wife had cut the little pitchfork off of the trident off Beastie and did the Star Trek logo, so it looked like he had the insignia on his shirt, and it was "Live free and prosper."
That's right. Somebody should make those. That would be cool, as long as we don't get sued for using the logo.
The Star Trek logo. I was thinking that'd be a great title for a Linux Fest-ish talk.
Yes, I do like that.
I'm looking at Texas.
And you got to have the artwork
you were looking at going to Texas, right?
Yeah. I'll probably be going to Texas Linux Fest.
Well, I'm pretty sure I'll be going as well, actually. I asked a friend who I knew had gone previously. It turns out she's actually a volunteer coordinator this year, and now they're hounding me to submit a talk too. So,
Well, no, it's a good sized conference, and I don't know if I'll be doing a talk, but definitely we'll be there so we can do some BSD Now
Yes,
stuff and
so-
talk to folks and all that. But I need to book tickets here
Yes.
soon, so I think it's
21st
August,
and
if I
22nd.
recall. Okay, yeah, that should work then. So we'll look forward to seeing some of you folks out there if you guys are in the Texas area. I think it's in San Marcos,
which is halfway
this year.
between San Antonio and Austin.
See, no excuse not to come then. That's a couple hour drive, but it's totally worth it. So definitely come on out. We'd love to meet you. So, okay, as we wrap up the show here, of course, we do want to let you know to please send your questions, comments, or pretty much
Yes.
anything you want to talk to us about. It doesn't matter what it is, or just to say hi. Send it to feedback@bsdnow.tv.
Yes, TJ gets lonely.
That's
Please
really the
email him.
Yes, definitely. So don't be
Yes.
shy. We're here to help with any questions you have. So we try and give the best technical advice, and some stuff we don't even put on the air, but we'll try and email back and forth and help you with whatever it is you're looking at. So definitely email us there. And we're always, of course, looking for interviews.
Yes.
So if you yourself are doing something, or if you know somebody that you can
Yes,
prod or
exactly.
goad or
Badger
order
them.
to come on the show, badger them, or, because you're their boss, you can tell them you have to do this. Do that too. Well, that's cool. We will make it pretty much painless. And of course, we love getting the interviews and love sharing what's going on with you guys in the BSD community. So definitely send that over to feedback@bsdnow.tv. Thank you for being with us this week, and we look forward to seeing you guys same time next week.